Hi everyone, welcome back to Yoga with Adele. Find your inner sparkle yoga, and today we are breaking down one of the most used, I think, and popular poses that you will find in every single public yoga class that you will go to. It's a super transition pose that we use during flow. It's also considered a resting pose, although it definitely doesn't feel like that to begin with. So don't worry if you're like, what? The pose is downward facing dog. So I know some of you will be like, oh God, no, it's hard. It takes like effort on the wrists. It's a difficult pose to hold for a while, but there is a point in your practice when you're, working in a strong flow and things like that, where you will begin to feel, like we get a few breaths in downward facing dog. Until that time, what I do always recommend to my students is, instead of coming into downward facing dog and holding it for a long time, perhaps you take a few breaths in your downward facing dog to explore and play, and then maybe you rest in child's pose just until you build up that arm strength, shoulder strength, wrist strength. But we're going to get into that. So what you're going to do, funnily enough, is we're going to just start seated. So it is the foundations of yoga for downward facing dog, but I want you to get a feel and a sensation for your shoulders and the rotation of your shoulders before we get into the shape. So just seated with a nice straight spine, I want you to take your arms out shoulder height, as if you're just pressing gently through a wall on either side, and feel where your shoulders are pointing. So feel the tops of your shoulders, feel the openness of your chest. Good. Hold it here. Breathe. Now I want you to start to rotate your fingers to point forwards, and allow that rotation to continue and spiral all the way up your arms until it reaches your shoulders, and you can't help but kind of round the back a little bit because you've turned your arm bones and your shoulders in so much. Now feel where the tops of your shoulders are pointing. They should kind of be pointing forwards a little bit here. Good. Now start to spiral your fingers back, and let that spiral keep going through the wrists, through the forearms. Oh, it starts to lift all the way into the shoulders and lifts your chest and your armpit area. Now your palms are facing up, and it's quite an effort to keep your hands here, right? You can really feel the work going on in the arms and the shoulders. Breathe. And then once more, just spiral in. So the palms face down, and then they keep going, so they face to the back. And you rotate the shoulders. So your shoulders are folding in, and then they're folding out. Now this is a ball and socket joint, so I want you to really feel that you have got such a range of rotation through your shoulders. Good. Give the arms a little shake out. That's quite challenging for the arms, even though doesn't look like you're doing very much. Now, the next thing to do is to come onto all fours and to check in with the hands position. So lots of times, this is foundations, so we're going through the basics. So lots of times people will bring their fingers together, and that's not helpful because you're not using the widest space that you can to support yourself in the posture. So you want to separate your fingers here and create space in between each of the fingers. You also want to just check in with the weight, the same as we would do when we were doing a standing posture, and we would check in with the weight distribution in our foot. We want to do that in our hand and create some nice hasta bandha here. So again, it's common for people to have habits and to kind of leave the thumbs light and lifted on the ground, and to really be pressing more into the little finger side of the hands, and that's not going to help your wrists over time. So I want you to roll your hands inwards so that you can really feel your thumb mounds pressing firmly into the ground. And then don't dump all the way into the heels of the hands. So grip lightly with the fingertips as well. And that creates like a tiny little dome, a little space just between the thumb and the first finger. We've got like this little gap. So we're pressing into the thumb, we're gripping with the fingertips. We've got a little gap under the thumb mound. Now just lightly begin to rock forwards and back and test out this good strong hand position here. And breathe. Good. And now just take your spine and drop your belly down so your spine arches. And you'll feel in the pelvic area here, the pelvis, the hip bones are rocking back. So the tailbone is shining up to the ceiling and the hip bones are coming down towards the floor. And then the alternate to that, tuck under with the tailbone, the pelvis, so the tailbone starts to wrap and tuck underneath us and become long. And the spine becomes rounded. Good. Now coming back to a neutral spine, just begin to curl your toes. Curling the toes under, and move forward just a touch. And the hands are roughly under the shoulders here. Turn the fingertips out just slightly, so just ever so slightly, like 5, 2 and 5 pass. See how that feels? Everybody's different, so you might prefer the fingers pointing straight forwards or a little bit out, so play with that. And then start to peel off the knees. So we hover the knees, and then thinking about that tailbone, just keep lifting the tailbone. Lift, lift, lift. I want you to keep your heels lifted high and your feet, just check that they're about hip distance apart. So the feet are not together, feet are hip distance. So we're beginning to really press into those hands. See if you can feel as if you're pushing the floor away so that your shoulders start to move away from your ears. And think about your spine becoming nice and long so you can bend the knees as you lift the tailbone. And then I want you to relax your neck. So again, it's common for people to kind of be looking forwards, holding on to tension in the neck. Relax the neck, give it a little shake. Breathe. And then start to just drop one heel down, bend the opposite knee, drop the other heel down, bend the opposite knee. Good. Starting to maybe feel it in the arm bones a little bit. So checking in with those shoulders now. Remember that rotation that we did. Roll your shoulders in, so squeeze them in, just the same as we did when we were seated. And then see if you can roll your arm bones out. Roll them in, so you scrunch the shoulders. And then roll them out. And then see if you can find somewhere between those 2 points where you feel you've got this nice broad space across the chest, the collarbones. And you can keep pedaling here, or you could just begin to drop your heels down in the center. Now, your heels do not have to come to the ground. For many people, this will be enough and the heels will just be dropping in space, and that's okay. If they do come all the way down, that's fine too, but don't force it. Good, let's just do one more breath here. I can really feel it in my shoulders now. And then to come out, lift the heels and begin to drop the knees. Ooh, release the toes and just sink back, sit bones to heels into an extended child's pose and drop your head down. So now here you could just roll out the wrists, give them a little bit of a rub. And then slowly drag your hands back towards your body and roll up to seated. Ooh, keep your arms a little shake out. So downward facing dog. It's not that it's an easy pose, far from it. It takes a lot of strength. It takes time to sometimes build up the strength in the wrists. So as I was saying, if you want to, that you could choose to just work on that strength by building it up slowly, get your alignment, lift your tailbone, just begin to gently pedal the feet, and just take between 3 and 5 breaths, and then you can come out of the pose. Now, for some people, if downward facing dog is very, very challenging for other reasons, such as pressure in the head, if you've got a condition or something like an illness at some time that makes you dizzy or anything like that, being upside down or even a head cold, it can be super challenging and not very much fun. So if that's the case, if you are practicing at home and you want an alternative to your downward facing dog, which is an inversion, you can see the head is way below the heart, what you can do is you can choose to do like a half dog using a wall. So you can still get that hand to wall connection, and you can bend the knees and start to really just lengthen the tailbone back. So you come into this kind of flat back position here. Engage the tummy, so don't let the tummy just drop. Pull the tummy in, that's going to help your back muscles. And then you can still get this nice downward facing dog effect. So I'm still stretching my hamstrings, I'm still lengthening my spine, I'm still stretching through my shoulders and keeping your neck in line with your spine. So hopefully that gives you an alternative to try if downward facing dog is not for you or you thought it wasn't for you. So thank you so much for watching this Foundations of Yoga video on downward facing dog. I hope you found it useful. Do let me know in the comments below if you've tried this video, if you've uncovered any little nuggets that you weren't aware of before in the pose. And please do like the video, and I would love for you to subscribe. So hit the subscribe button. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything. It just means that you are following what I do, supporting what I do, and you will be more likely to see more videos from me as I produce them. So thank you so much for joining me today. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.